The people of America have spoken and unanimously picked Donald Trump to rule them again for the next 4 years. At this time, let's ask VOA correspondent Jessica Stone for some questions on the just concluded Democratic exercise in the land of the free. Good morning once again. Hi, good to see you. Good to see you again, Jessica, back in PTV News Tonight. Thanks for making time to update us again today. So it has been a very interesting 24 hours. So much has happened. Please update us on the red wave and the results that has, I would say, shocked the world.
Well, I would first of all say I haven't slept much because this was a nail biter. And overnight, I mean, we just kept having more and more reasons to watch longer. And so I suspect that a lot of Americans are waking up this morning either to find out the results or with a calling in sick because they have literally stayed up all night. This is really unprecedented. We have never seen an American president, especially after being twice impeached and once convicted, retake the White House. Only one other time in U.S. history has a U.S. president even had two non-consecutive terms, and that was over 100 years ago. So we are definitely in unprecedented times, but at the risk of overusing that word, because journalists can often be accused of that, I want to get into some of the reasons why we landed where we landed in the United States. Number one, you're going to hear this day in and day out, the U.S. economy. There's an age-old phrase. It's not actually that old. It goes back to the Clinton years, that it's the economy, stupid. And that's what we're seeing in the exit polling, is that most Americans that said that they don't believe the economy is on the right track, or they think the country is on the wrong track, or that they do not feel as economically secure as they did 4 years ago, they voted for Donald Trump. Is that an endorsement of every policy that he is going to pursue? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it just means that some of those voters are just wanting something new because they've given 4 years to this administration and they don't like the results. We also know that some of the facts are different than the feelings in terms of the U.S. economy. It's still in much better shape than much of the world post-COVID. All of that said, we did see some very key demographics come out for Trump that have not done so before. We saw larger numbers of African Americans, specifically in the cities, African American males. We saw an explosion of Latino men come out for Trump. And we saw large numbers, over 50% of the voters that came out for him were there were high numbers of uneducated, and by that I mean non-university educated voters that came out for him as well. So these are some of the trends we're watching. What does it mean? One interpretation is that we are seeing a swing and a switching of places of the classes that support these parties. Democratic Party has traditionally been the party of the working man, the unions. Many of those voters are going over to Trump, liking his populist message of shutting down external conflicts, increasing U.S. investment inside the country, and trying to get out of foreign entanglements and foreign trade deals that export U.S. jobs. We're also seeing Democrats attract a lot more of the elite of this country, the wealthy of this country, and the people that are more comfortable with more government control. So I think we are seeing a sea change in terms of how the electorate looks. Whether or not it's going to translate into huge action on the economy, that remains to be seen. But that building behind me just got a Republican majority in the U.S. Senate. That means that all of the people that Donald Trump selects to be his leaders of different departments, whether that's Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Commerce, Treasury, etc., they're much more likely to be confirmed. There's not going to be a big contest over their confirmation. And if the Republican Party keeps the House, there is no divided government. And that does mean a mandate for the Republican Party agenda. Whatever it looks like by the time Trump takes office next January, it is much more likely to come to pass because of those dynamics.
Okay, I'm very interested to see how the next couple of weeks to months would pan out. But as of course the world saw that Donald Trump swept in a decisive victory the U.S. presidential race, defeating Kamala Harris and even surprising his closest allies, I would say. But in that respect, how would you describe the different parties that gathered to support these candidates and their reactions per se?
Well, I think that the Democrats are going to do a lot of soul searching. Why did this happen? How did they miss it? Where were the polling failures? Where were the strategic failures? I mean, keep in mind, Donald Trump had a much longer campaign ramp than Kamala Harris did coming into this election. She only had a few months. He had many months. And pardon the noise behind me. The traffic is just getting going. So apparently some people are coming to work after a late night. But definitely there's going to be some soul searching on the left. And on the right, you know, there is really a huge sea change in terms of the Republican Party dynamics, because the Trump wing of the party is vindicated. I mean, they didn't have a mandate in 2016. They lost in 2020. And now they have swept at least 2, maybe 3 parts of the U.S. government. And that's a big that is a big change. It's a big change, especially for the pro-defense and pro-conflict neocons, as we would call them, the Cheney family, and some of the older guard Republicans. It's this new Republican Party agenda is much more anti-alliance, pro-isolationism, or at least pro-selective engagement. So there is a sea change in the Republican Party as well. A lot for people to reckon with, both politically and potentially personally, because this is still a very divided country despite the election results.
Yeah, funny you should mention that it's still a very divided country. Of course, we have kept track of the different reactions around the world and have seen the polarized reactions, especially from the disappointed Democratic supporters. What would you say would this mean for the rest of the world, especially in how it also relates to us in Southeast Asia?
Well, I think for Southeast Asia, and in particular for the Philippines, it's going to mean a stronger partnership with the United States. While the U.S. is not, while the U.S. under Trump has not done a lot of outreach to all of the region in terms of the Indo-Pacific framework, many of the people close to the incoming president that I know are very much in favor of focusing much more on the U.S.-China competition in the region, and especially increasing the defense posture and support to nations that are in partnership with the United States against some of the aggressive actions that Beijing is taking. So I would say, while there will be a more transactional approach, I know South Korea is very much concerned about the demands to pay more for the troops on the border between South and North Korea, for example. I would expect the investments that are being made by the U.S. military into the Philippines in particular to get even more investment and to be buttressed by other policy changes that really try to change the foreign policy focus from the wars in the Middle East and the wars to Europe to Asia, because that is a focus both economically and militarily for an incoming Trump administration.
Thank you very much, Jessica Stone, for always updating us. Have a great morning.
You bet. Good to be with you.